Hey folks, welcome back to the Asset Champion podcast. It's me, your host, Mike P., with another first-time visitor to the program, someone I am very excited to talk to with today because I am a super fan of his podcast. He is the host of a podcast called The Power of Construction, and it is put out by a company called Procore Technologies. He's joining us today from the beautiful state of Florida, the Sunshine State. Everybody, please welcome Kris Lengieza to the show. Kris, welcome to the Asset Champion podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. I'm excited to be here and have listened to many episodes that you've done and love the podcast, love what you all are doing. So thanks for listening to our podcast as well. I think as we talk today, we'll realize there's actually a lot of connection in our customer bases and what we do and how we work together. So this is exciting. I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Absolutely. Collaboration, Kris. It's all about the connectivity of people and data and the asset lifecycle. And I love the fact that we have these complementary connections and technologies, but also we see the bigger picture and the opportunity to share that story across the full, life of the asset. And your role at Procore, I want to hear more about it. You just told me you have a new title, Field Chief Innovation Officer, which is one of the coolest titles I've heard in a long time. Tell me what that means. And for my audience that doesn't know maybe about Procore, about that and the podcast, and your co-host Sasha, who couldn't be with us today, but we want to give her a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. A big shout out to Sasha. I'll get to the podcast in a minute. So just a tiny bit about Procore. Procore is a construction management platform. We have been built and founded on servicing the construction industry. 20 plus years that we've been building software for the construction industry. And we have a platform that handles everything from the very, very early conceptual planning of projects all the way through to that handoff to those asset managers, taking that data, collecting it throughout the build cycle or the renovation cycle, and then making that ready to hand off to our team members that have to manage that asset for the long term, because we know that assets life cycles are much longer than the construction phase. The construction phase only operates in about 20% of that. We've been focused on this industry for a long time, and we like to think of ourselves as a real partner to the industry. And so we do a lot more than just provide software. We do a lot of investing in the people of our industry, a lot of investing in the advancement. Right now, we know we have a big labor shortage in construction, but also in the facility and asset management portion of that. So we need a lot more skilled trades. So we work on that pretty heavily as well. And it's a perfect segue into actually what I do here at Procore. So as Mike mentioned, I'm in a new role as our Field Chief Innovation Officer. And so I spend a tremendous amount of time focusing on working with our customers, really focusing on how to help them be ready for the next thing, be ready for the evolution and change that's happening in our industry right now, whether that be, the introduction of AI and more autonomous and augmented workflows, or that be how do we train the next generation of people for this industry as well. And so I spend a tremendous amount of time just tracking what's happening in the industry. How do I support other executives in the industry? And I meet with a lot of owners, a lot of contractors, a lot of trade organizations, just trying to make sure that we are taking the best steps forward that we can in the industry. And it's those actual steps forward that we talk about on The Power of Construction. This last season, we focused a lot about the future of our industry. Where are we headed, right? The future of productivity. How are we going to get more productive in this industry? And that's through automation and augmentation. The future of the workforce. We understand that we have a labor shortage, but I think the roles in construction are going to evolve over time. And I think we're going to see the same thing when we talk about facilities management and asset management as well. We also have to think about how we make decisions. I think this is a place where maybe facilities management and asset champions are a little bit ahead of where construction has been, in that using data to really drive our decision making instead of just our guts, instead of just what we know from our 20 to 30 years of experience, because that experience sometimes is leaving the industry. And then lastly, we talk about a lot of the future of design, how that design is evolving, but also who is owning it. And this is another place where I think the relationship between construction and asset and facility management comes together, because as builders, we spend a lot of time working with those facilities managers, in the handoff process, and we understand what works for them well. And so the more that we can incorporate that into the design early on and take more ownership of that, represent them during the design phase, because sometimes those people don't even exist, right? If it's a new building, a new facility. That's right. And so we want to represent them and bring the best product possible to them as well. So we interview other executives, other thought leaders in the industry to talk about these topics. And we're season 2, about to head into season 3 right now. So really excited, Mike. We'll have to see if maybe we can get another crossover episode and have you come on and talk a little bit about the future of asset management as well.
Well, I'd love to do that. And I really appreciate so much of what you just shared there. And it aligns so nicely, Kris, with what we're trying to do here on this show and with my audience. They're so interested in having a seat at the table and being able to share their expertise and experience with those making the decisions around the design and construction of a new project. And I think this is such a nice complementary, crossover podcast, yes, but also just philosophically we're aligned. We talked a few months ago preparing for this, and I was so excited because I knew you had that same type of holistic view of the built environment, yes, but the people and what it's all about. The human side of all this is what we try to get to here on this podcast. So we're going to talk about all of it, but I want to see if we're aligned in another area, Kris, and that's the DJ Mike P favorite question. What kind of music gets you inspired? Are you we're about the same age. You're maybe a little younger than me, but we have probably something in common there, I hope. What is it on your playlist that gets you fired up?
Yeah, if I have to open up the playlist in the Apple Music, I'm an Apple Music guy.
Okay.
The recent has been I've been going back to my teen angsty years and leaning into a lot of alternative pop punk. Think of things like Good Charlotte, Green Day, Weezer, Taking Back Sunday. Mm-hmm. I've also been spending a lot of time in the gym, and they're just kind of like good gym and workout music to go along with that. So I would say that's like the most recent genre, but I have a very eclectic set of tastes. I also have 3 kids, and so there are a lot of Taylor Swift, Cat's Eye, things that you'll see in my playlist and you listens to that? And I was like, no, but my kids can take control of my phone and they listen to that. So it comes up on the, on the recommended list a little bit too often there as well too.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And it's never ending, Kris. It's the idea that, music is such a powerful thing that connects us to our teen years, as you and I talk about, but also, then it's a connection with our kids and we get to pass that on from generation to generation. So, have you been to a concert with your kids where you can come together? And I'm in the Jonas Brothers stage where my kids were raised during the early Disney Channel Jonas Brothers. And then they came back 10 years later as the grown up Jonas Brothers. And now we go to concerts together. It's awesome. Yeah.
So I have to say this, Stranger Things might have been one of the best things that happened to music with my kids because they are 11 and 10 and they're starting to watch Stranger Things. So they're hearing all of these great 80s and early 90s tracks during the show. And so now they want to listen to these things in the car. And, so we've taken them to Dave Matthews Band and stuff like that concerts before, but recently they've been really leaning into a little bit more of the 80s soundtracks, which has been fun because that's the stuff that my wife and I grew up on. I think yesterday the request was You Spin Me Right Round.
Dead or Alive.
We were going through some really classics in there, which is fun because then you get to connect with them and they want to listen to it and you don't mind listening to it. And so that's been exciting as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I could spend the whole podcast talking to you about this. And
so you're right. Along. It's one of those things that's easy to connect around is music.
You've got my head spinning right round, baby, right round with like a record, baby. That's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. The other question I'd like to ask real quick before we get into the meat of the matter, the topic at hand with asset and construction management is the idea of inspiration. This show is more about that human side, the people listening to us facing challenges of a fast moving marketplace. Do you have a favorite motivational quote you could share with them?
Yeah. So Mike, I'm a big golfer. I love golf. I don't play as much as I'd like, but I have a big goal this year of playing more golf, more golf with my kids. And Ben Hogan has a quote that it's basically the most important shot in golf is the next one. Right. And I think that's just so applicable to kind of like things in life as well, which is like, hey, the most important thing you can do is the thing you need to do right now that you need to be focused on. Give it 100% of your intention, give it 100% of your effort, and do that thing the best that you can. Don't worry about the thing that is 2, 3, 4 things past that. Don't worry about the thing that was 2 or 3 times ago. You got to let those go. And I just think it's a very like relatable quote for even if you're not a golfer, you can kind of apply that to everything. It's like focus on the right now, the thing that you have to do at this very, very moment, and do that as absolutely the best that you can. And then go on to the next thing after that.
Absolutely. Wow. So well said, Kris. It applies, yes, in every area of our lives. I'm going to 3-putt in my metaphorical podcasting life here. And hopefully I'll just pick up the ball and move on to the next hole and not worry about it and try again. And it's the next shot that counts the most. And whether we're talking to each other or our colleagues or our team members or our kids, that is so relevant and applicable. So thanks for sharing it. One more question out of curiosity. We've talked about this, but my show's called the Asset Champion Podcast. When you think about what it takes to be an asset champion here in 2026, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, and this is a great question because I think when I think of people who are champions for moving an industry forward or moving a role forward, I'm always thinking of those people who are kind of pushing the envelope forward, but also making it better for everybody else that's around them. And so when I particularly apply that to facilities managers or asset management, right, I'm really thinking about those who are trying to find a new way or a better way to serve, the life cycle of that building or to serve the occupants or the users of that building, right? And whether they're applying technology or they're applying a process, right? Or they're trying to just make sure that they leave it better than they found it. Those are the folks that I think will change the way that we use assets that we have today. We talked a little bit about this on the pre-show, and that 80% of the life cycle of a building happens after, right, the construction process. Mm-hmm. And that life cycle, it mixes construction and renovation and maintenance and all these things that have to happen throughout that process. And so these facilities, and I don't know if everyone who ever experiences a building or a factory or an office or a medical center thinks about this, they're constantly changing. I was meeting with a large healthcare client a few weeks ago, and it blew my mind about how much construction they did in active hospitals in a given year. You don't think about that when you go to the ER. You don't think about that when you go to these places because they do a really good job of trying not to disrupt what the main purpose of that and to keep things up and running. And he talked a lot about having to maintain a lot of the master systems and the infrastructure for these hospitals and these campuses, and just to make sure that they could do what at the end of the day they're trying to do, which is keep people healthy, give people care that need it. And that's where I think these asset champions really come into play, is these people are finding new ways to make sure that the resources we depend on, whether that's for our job, whether that's for services, whether that's, for consumer goods, are undisrupted, are in the best possible operating order that they can be, and are always up to the current state, right? I think that's another thing as well. It's like trying to keep them, at tip-top operating momentum. And so when I think of an asset champion, it's that person that lives and breathes that every single day and is trying to find new ways to do that.
It's a high calling. You're so right, Kris. And you put it in a way that I don't often take time to pause and think about. And I'm sure my audience doesn't either. They're doing their job. They're head down, taking care of the immediate need of the project. But to take a moment and say, you're really making a big difference in the lives of human beings who enter these facilities, who are going to care for them, not just now, but into the future, the next generation. So much there I could ask you about. But let me ask you from your perspective, because it's a unique opportunity to talk to another podcaster who has his fingers on the pulse of the industry, construction focus, yes, but this whole view we've been talking about. What is top of mind for you on your show? I know you mostly talk about some of the technologies and ways to be more efficient in construction and design. But when the handover is happening, that data that you're collecting and keeping track of for us is going to be handed off to my listeners. And then it's going to make a huge impact on whether that 80%, that next stage of the asset lifecycle is successful. So what are some of the things you're seeing? Certainly we've mentioned AI is going to have a role in this, and I could take in all kinds of direction, but we only have a short amount of time together. So what would you like my audience to be thinking about today?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about the challenges that our industry faces today. And I actually think that the challenges that the construction industry face today are probably very similar to those who are in the facility and asset management world are facing. And the reason I say that is we're both dealing with a physical built environment, and we rely on a lot of the same resources. We rely on the same labor, right? So whether it's a electrician or a mechanical engineer or, a plumber, whatever that is, you need them for facilities management. We need them for new construction. And sometimes they're bouncing in between those things, right? And so, right. And we know that there's not a lot of those people out there right now. There's not enough of them that are highly skilled. And especially in specific project types, that's a challenge. We also talk a lot, you mentioned data, right? I think, in construction, we've had a tremendous amount of data for a very long time, but 95% of that data actually goes unused. And I would almost guarantee you, if you go ask most facility and asset managers what their handover package looked like from the contractor at the end of the project, they're like, oh yeah, they gave us like 6 3-ring binders and a bunch of digital files that they dumped in a whole bunch of folders, but it wasn't really usable, right? That's right. And I think when we work through the construction phase, and we're now starting to think about how we use our data during the construction phase better to make decisions, we're actually also preparing ourselves to better hand off that data to our facilities friends, right? We're thinking about how we're tying that data to more real world, whether that's a 3D model, whether that's reality capture, whether that's just a database that's more structured around the assets that we have. We've spent a lot of time at Procore trying to find ways to make it easier for things like submittals, inspections, all the stuff that is done during construction that would be really relevant to a facilities manager to get tied to that asset. So when we hand it off, it's like, hey, I'm looking at this air handler unit. I know that this inspection was done on it. Here's what the fan speed was when we turned it over, all this stuff, but it's handed over in a nice little neat package, not necessarily in something that is like, oh, I got to go dig through a whole bunch of submittals and testing reports and all the things that are in the 3-ring binders, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that ties into the third piece, which is the technology. And, listen, we can't turn a blind eye to the fact that AI is changing things, right? Whether that is how we can just retrieve information, right? So how we can ask questions. I've been a big proponent that if you've been using software for the last 10 years in construction, it's probably very similar in facilities management. Like you're used to going into an iPad or a phone and just filling in a form and stepping through it. And it looks a lot like a paper form that you probably had for like 20 years before that, right? Right. All we did was digitize it. We didn't really like transform the process. And, candidly, I think a lot of those form-based processes are going to kind of die. There's no reason for us to fill out forms anymore, right? We need structured data, but there's no reason that we can't have a conversation now, given that with large language models and how easy it is to just extract the right information out of whether it's voice or it's an image or a video. And that's what gets really exciting, because if you're out in the field, the last thing you want to have to do is like break out an iPad or a phone and start like pecking away to like fill in a bunch of fields, right? Yeah. But how hard is it to just, whip out your phone and just, talk to Siri or make a voice note and be like, hey, I'm working on AHU2 today. I'm noticing that there's a rattle coming from the fan belt. We probably need to get somebody out here for service, blah, 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 blah. And that creates the work order and everything that goes with that, right? And that gets really exciting because now that person who is out working on the facility has more time to actually work on the facility and less time to do documentation, chase information, follow up on next steps, because we can automate some of that work. And that goes back to, okay, how are we actually improving the facility, improving the lives of the people that the facility serves? Or in our goal, like our vision is to improve the lives of everybody in construction, right? And that extends beyond we have to think about what we're actually building, like hospitals, data centers, housing, these things that people rely on. And at the end of the day, when we're doing that well, right, we're serving the entire community, the entire globe, with all the things that we need. And that's why the roles of facilities managers and asset managers and construction folks is so important. Is the world revolves around the built environment, and it's the building of it and the maintaining of it is incredibly critical to everything that we do. And we can't be successful without those things.
I couldn't agree more, Kris. I love how you framed that and how you gave some real world examples of the power or potential of AI and some of these tools that will make this whole situation better for my listeners and your audience as well, and the way we can work together to really solve some of these problems and get to where we need to go. The question that comes up again and again here, and I'll just ask it to you since you seem to have a great insight into how we can best utilize some of these tools and the challenges you mentioned and confront them. Where should my audience be focused when it comes to upskilling and learning new things and investing their time in whatever it may be, a new industry credential or a new, technical course, or just maybe improving as human beings? That emotional intelligence is something we talk a lot about on my podcast. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, and where do you think the most bang for the buck comes?
Yeah, I think I love things in threes. It's the engineer in me. I don't know why. Like everything buckets into threes for me. The first part is, and interesting, it was the same healthcare provider that I was talking to. There's a need for us to really focus on the communication, the leadership, the cultural aspects of a lot of our people, because those skills are going to become even more important as people grow. We have a retiring workforce, and we've got a lot of like new entries and junior folks that are going to be stepping into those roles. And so to really upskill them to be good communicators, right? To be good culture champions, right? To be ready to be leaders. We're going to need new managers, right? People that are going to lead other people. Those are important skills, and those are really great ways to get ahead. So that would be my first bucket. I'd call it in the softer skills, the leadership skills.
Sure.
The second piece is, I think we really have to upskill people around their understanding of like digital literacy. Everybody should understand the basics of, AI. Like, you don't need to be an expert on it, but I think understanding what it can and it can't do, what your expectations should be, a basic level of like prompting and how to ask it questions, how to talk to it, things like that. I think those are all going to be like kind of base level requirements for the future. And it's going to make an infiltration into how we do our jobs. And, everybody always says, well, AI won't replace you, but somebody who's using it will. Right. I don't even know if I would say that, but like I would say, if you aren't taking advantage of it, you are going to be at a disadvantage. You are going to have to work exponentially harder than the person who is using it, right? And so when we think about it in terms of me as a human, I want my quality of life to be as good as possible. So why wouldn't I use every tool at my disposal to just be better, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And then I think the other one is, I would just say new skills. And I think it's an interesting conundrum that I think we sit in today, is that, construction and facilities management are very physical environments. And we very much focused on the people who are in this environment that understand, whether it be the trades, whether it be service, right? A lot of those things are core to our being. But I think we're going to bring in new skill sets to this industry when we start to introduce AI through automation. We start to introduce maybe even robotics into some of the work that we do, right? And so I think being the ability to learn new skills and how to use those technologies and apply new thinking is really important. And we will probably go and grab some people from other industries because those other industries might be slowing down. And they'll look at our industry and they'll go, this is a booming industry. Like, we are still building a lot of stuff. We are still maintaining a ton of buildings. We have to, right? Sure. And so we're going to get an influx of talent. And so there's an opportunity for upskilling there around just learning new skills to apply to your job. And those skills could be a lot of different things. So that would be like my 3 things to focus on if I was trying to kind of get myself ahead right now.
Such good stuff, Kris. Really nicely done. I appreciate it very much. I'm looking at the clock. It goes by so fast, man, when we're having these conversations. I really have enjoyed this time with you. Before I let you go, one final question I always like to ask for some practical piece of advice, some final takeaway you'd like to share with my audience of asset and facility managers as we head into the future of the built environment together.
Yeah. I think that last piece of advice would be go back to my quote, right? In that the most important shot in golf is the next one. Apply that to think about what you're doing right now, right? Really plan that next shot, whatever that is, whether it's, hey, I'm implementing a new system, or, hey, I'm actually thinking about a new renovation of this building. Like, put everything you have into that one shot, that one thing, and do the best you can at it. And then, worry about the next thing after that. Because if we don't apply ourselves 100% to the most important things, we just won't be able to succeed in the way that we need to.
The Power of Construction podcast, everybody. It's available on YouTube. It's beautifully produced. It's incredibly easy to watch and listen to. I encourage you all to check it out. Look for the show notes and you'll find a link to make it easy to connect with Sasha and Kris. So with all that said, Kris, this has been amazing. I really have enjoyed our time together, and I want to thank you for joining me here on the Asset Champion podcast.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. It's been great being here.
And thank you, everybody, for once again watching us here on YouTube. If you're not already a subscriber at the Aptura YouTube channel, please add that to your list. Even if you listen mostly audio only on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, I would love for you to add the video element, at least part of it. It helps bring another level of that human connection to life. And I hope you're finding some value in these episodes. If so, please share this podcast with a colleague or a friend, anyone who might like to join us as we continue on our journey to encourage and inspire you to be an asset champion. Peace out, everybody.